Hello everyone and welcome to today's maths lesson where we're doing the next lesson of unit 9.10, and today's learning objective is to know how to solve recipe proportion problems. So on the screen are 6 questions. This is your knowledge retrieval activity. Please pause the video here for about 10 minutes and work through those 6 questions, answering as many as you can. Pause the video now for about 10 minutes please. Okay, so hopefully at this point you've paused that, you've tried those 6 questions and you're ready for the answers. So here they are. So there's your answers. Again, please pause the video here, mark those answers, mark them in green pen as well please. Okay, so let's move on to the first problem of the lesson, and we'll start with an I do and a we do. And like I say, we're doing recipes today, and the first one says how much of each ingredient would be needed to make scones to serve 12 people to start off with. So we have a recipe here, and this is for 6 people, and it gives you the ingredients you need to make scones for 6 people. So for 12 people, we need to compare 12 to 6, and obviously we know 12 is double 6, so we're multiplying the amount of people by 2. That means we're going to multiply all of these ingredients by 2 as well. So if I just multiply the quantities for each of these ingredients by 2, that'll give me the ingredients I need for 12 people. Okay, so 240 times 2 is going to give me 480 g of flour. I'll just put F for flour. 60 grams of butter, 60 times 2 gives 120 grams of butter. 56 grams of sugar times by 2 gives me 112 grams of caster sugar. 1 egg, if we double that we get 2 eggs. And 180 ml of milk, if we times that by 2, we're going to get 360 ml of milk. Okay, so this is the recipe for 6 people. To work out the recipe for 12, we've just got to double each ingredient. Now, how about when we need to work out 2 people? Well, I'm going to do it this side actually for 2 people. So again, compare 2 and 6. Well, to get from 6 to 2, you divide by 3 because 2 is a third of 6. And then again, you're just going to divide all of these ingredients by 3 as well. So 240 divided by 3 gives 80 g of flour. 60 divided by 3 gives 20 g of butter. 56 divided by 3, I'm presuming this maybe should be 54, so apologies for that. I'm going to actually change that in this one as well. Actually no, that should be fine in that one. Right, so 56 divided by 3, well, that's going to give me about 18.6 recurring. Again, I presume this should be 54. 18.6 recurring grams of caster sugar, and maybe you could just round this up to 19. 1 egg, well, we're dividing that by 3, so we need a third of an egg. And 180 ml of milk, again, dividing it by 3, which is going to give us 60 ml of milk. Okay, so please copy this one down and then try the next one that we do by yourselves. So pause the video, copy the first one, try that second one by yourselves. You can have a few minutes to do that. Okay, so for the next one, hopefully you've paused it and you've unpaused and you've got some sort of attempt at this question. So let's have a look. Right, so we've got the recipe for 4 people for scones for 4 people. Okay, so for 12 people, well, this is the recipe for 4. Compare 4 to 12. Obviously 12 is 3 times more than 4, so we're timesing this recipe by 3. and we've got to times all the ingredients by 3 as well. So 240 times 3, that's going to give me 720 g of flour. 60 times 3 gives me 180 g of butter. 56 times 3 is going to give me 168 g of caster sugar. 1 egg times 3 is going to give me 3 eggs. And 180 times 3 is going to give me 540 ml of milk. So compare your answers for 12 people to these. If you made a mistake, maybe see where you went wrong and correct it. But really well done if you got that first one right. Now let's have a look at the next one. So to make scones for one person. So obviously we've got 4 people here and we need the recipe for one person. So compare 4 to 1, and obviously 1 is a quarter of 4. So we're going to divide this recipe by 4 now, this time. Okay. So 240 divided by 4, and that's going to give me 60 grams of flour. 60 divided by 4 gives me 15 grams of butter. 56 divided by 4 is going to give me 14 grams of caster sugar. 1 egg divided by 4, that's going to give me a quarter of an egg. And 180 divided by 4 gives me 45 ml of milk. And again, really well done if you got these right. Compare yours to this, see if you got them right. If you made any mistakes, try and identify where you went wrong and put them right. But really well done if you got the right answer. Okay, let's have a look at a next example. So, first one, how much of each ingredient would be needed to make scones to serve 2 people? Well, we've got the recipe for 4. So let's work out the recipe for 2. I'm going to write it here. And obviously compare 4 to 2, and you should be able to note that 2 is half of 4. So we're going to divide our ingredients by 2, half of all of these ingredients. So half of 240 gives me 120 grams of flour. Half of 160 gives me 80 grams of butter. Half of 56 gives me 28 grams of caster sugar. Half of 1 egg gives me half an egg. So half an egg, and then half of 180 gives me 90 ml of milk. Then we've also got to make the recipe for 6 people. Now, you could compare 4 and 6, and obviously 4 goes into 6 1.5 times. So you could multiply all of these by 1.5, and that would be fine. If you feel comfortable doing that, that's okay. But I think an easier way to do this is, well, obviously 4 doesn't go into 6 a whole amount of times, but 2 does. 2 goes into 6 3 times. So I think it's actually easier on this one if we take a step back and look at our recipe for 2 people, and then obviously 2 goes into 6 3 times. So if we triple all of these ingredients, multiply them all by 3, we'll get our recipe for 6 people. So starting off, 120 grams of flour times 3, that gives me 360 grams of flour. 80 grams of butter times 3 gives me 240 grams of butter. 28 times 3, that's going to give me 84 grams of caster sugar. Half an egg times 3 gives me 1.5 eggs. And 90 times 3 gives me 270 ml of milk. Okay, so again, please pause the video here, copy down this example, and then pause it while you try the we do as well, please. Okay, so for this next one, we've got the recipe for 4 people. First off, we want the recipe for 1 person. So I'm just going to write the 1 person here. I'm going to recreate the recipe underneath this. So obviously compare 1 and 4, and 1 is a quarter of 4, so we're going to quarter all of these ingredients or divide them by 4. So 320 divided by 4, that's going to give me 80 grams of flour. 160 divided by 4 is going to give me 40 grams of butter. 56 divided by 4 gives me 14 grams of caster sugar. 1 egg divided by 4 gives me a quarter of an egg. And 180 ml of milk divided by 4 gives me 45 ml of milk. And then we look at the recipe for 3 people, and if I just write that here, and again you could find a multiplier to make 4 go into 3, but that's going to be dead difficult. It's going to be really hard. The easier way to go is to just go back a step so you can go forward 2 steps. So go back to 1 person. Obviously 1 goes into 3 times. So if I multiply the recipe for 1 person by 3, that'll give me the recipe for 3 people. Okay? So 80 times 3 gives me 240 grams of flour. 40 times 3 gives me 120 grams of butter. 14 times 3 gives me 42 grams of caster sugar. Quarter of an egg times 3 gives me 3/4 of an egg. And 45 times 3 gives me 135 milliliters of milk. So once again, compare your answers with this one, and then if you got those all right, you're doing really well, so well done. If you didn't get those right, look at my example and just try and spot where did you go wrong. Okay, so our final example for the minute. We've got a recipe for 8 people, and this is to make pizza for 8 people, and we want to work out the recipe to make pizza for 12 people. Okay? So this is going to be a 2-step sort of thing. I think the easiest way to do this is to look at 8 and 12. So that's 12 people. So obviously you could look at this and you could say, well, 8 goes into 12 1.5 times. So you could times all of these ingredients by 1.5. But I actually think the easiest step is to find like a middleman. So find a common factor of 8 and 12. What number goes into 8 and 12? You can have a think about that for a moment. And obviously, hopefully, the number that goes into 8 and 12 is going to be 4. So let's work out first the recipe for 4 people. I'm going to have to write a little bit small because I've not got a lot of space there. So, to get from 8 to 4, we're dividing by 2. So we're just halving all of these ingredients. So that's going to give me 160 grams of this ingredient. Well, half of the next ingredient, passata. That's going to give me 80 mils of passata, and half of the mozzarella, half of 80 is going to give me 40 grams of mozzarella. And the reason I chose 4, like I say, is because it's a common factor of 8 and 12, and 4 goes into 12 3 times. So we can now multiply this recipe by 3 to get the recipe for 12. So 160 times 3 is going to give me 480 grams of flour. 80 times 3 is going to give me 240 milliliters of passata, and 40 grams times 3 is going to give me 120 grams of mozzarella. Okay. And then we're going to need to do the same for this next one. I'm actually going to use this space here. 3 people. So again, find a common factor of 8 and 3, and the only one is actually going to be 1. So we've got to work out the recipe for 1 person for this one. And obviously, to get from 8 to 1, we divide by 8, so we need to divide all of these ingredients by 8 as well. Okay. So 320 grams divided by 8, that's going to give me 40 grams of flour. 160 ml divided by 8 is going to give me 20 ml of passata. And 80 grams of mozzarella divided by 8 is going to give me 10 grams of mozzarella. And then to get from 1 to 3, we're obviously multiplying by 3. So times all of these ingredients by 3, that's going to leave 120 grams of flour, 60 ml of passata, and 10 grams of mozzarella times 3 gives me 30 grams of mozzarella. So if you would please pause the video here and then have a go at the we do. I'm going to have to rub this I do off so I've got space for the we do. So please make sure you copy this one down before having a go at the we do. So pause the video now, please. Right, okay, so let's have a look at this next one. So we've got a pizza that serves 16 people, and we've got to find the recipe for one person. I mean for 12 people to start off with. So let's write 12 over here. So again, easiest step to do is to find a common factor of 12 and 16, and that is going to be 4. You could choose a different factor, but I think this is going to be the easiest one. So look at the relation between 16 and 4. Obviously 4 is a quarter of 16, so we're dividing by 4. 16 divided by 4 gives 4. So we're also going to divide all of these ingredients by 4 as well. So 320 divided by 4 is going to give me 80 grams of flour. It's going to give me 40 ml of passata, and it's going to give me 20 grams of mozzarella. Then you're going to ask yourself, how do I get from 4 to 12? And the answer should be you times by 3. So triple all of these ingredients, that leaves 240 grams of flour, 120 ml of passata, and 60 grams of mozzarella. And then going in the other direction, well, we've got to find one person. And on this one you can actually do it. You can actually just divide all these ingredients by 16 and that'll be fine. Can anyone think of another way you might work out one person if you weren't comfortable dividing all of these by 16? And you would be correct if you said maybe go back to 4 people and divide by 4, or even go back to 12 people and divide by 12. Another way to do it would be go to 4 people, work out 2 people, and then work out one person. So there's a load of ways you can do this. I'm just going to divide these by 16 because all of these numbers are multiples of 16. So 320 divided by 16 gives 20 grams of flour. 160 ml divided by 16 gives 10 ml of passata. And 80 grams divided by 16 gives 5 grams of mozzarella. Okay? Right, okay. Okay, so here's your first 2 questions to do independently. So please pause the video here on this screen for as long as you need, work through these questions here. So make sure you pause the video now, please. Okay, so there's your answers to the first 2. So again, please pause the video here, work through that. And questions 3 and 4. So once again, please pause the video here, try those 2 questions, and then we'll give you the answers to those 2 as well. Okay, so here's the answers to those 2 questions as well. Please mark those in green pen. Really well done if you got all the 4 questions correct. And if you didn't get those correct, don't worry about it. Just maybe try and spot where did you go wrong. Were you dividing or multiplying by the wrong thing, or did you just do the calculation incorrect? Yeah, try and identify where you got wrong and try and put it right for next time. Sorry about that, I just had a slight technical difficulty. Okay, so it says he's got 180 grams of butter, and if you look here, it says in the recipe he's got 60 grams of butter. So he's actually got 3 times the amount of butter that he needs. So if he's got 3 times the amount of butter, let's look at question 1. How many scones can be made? So he's got 3 times the amount of butter, so he can make so we're presuming he's got 3 times the ingredients. So with 180 grams of butter, 3 times the amount of butter, he can make 3 times the amount of scones. So 6 times 3 equals 18. Okay. And how many grams of self-raising flour are needed? Well, I'm presuming this is needed to make 18 scones. So if he's got 3 times the amount of butter, he needs 3 times the amount of flour. So if we times that recipe by 3, or that ingredient by 3, that will give us 720 grams of flour. So for part B, it's 720 grams of flour. So please pause the video there, copy that one down, have a go at the next one as well, please. Okay, so for the next one, so it says he's got 540 ml of milk, so he's actually got 3 times the amount of milk. So he's got 3 times the milk, which means he can make 3 times the scones. So 4 times 3 gives me 12. So really well done if you got that correct. And how many grams of self-raising flour are needed? Well, he's going to need 3 times the amount, so 240 times 3, which again gives me 720 grams. Really well done if you got both of those right. So you can see these questions are a little bit different and they're a little bit more challenging. I'll give you an opportunity to practice some by yourselves now. So if you can, please pause the video here, answer these 2 questions. We'll have a couple more and then I'll give you the answers. So pause the video now, please. Okay, in question 3 and 4. So once again, pause the video, try these 2 for me as well, please. So make sure you pause that video. And for your answers, so there's the answers on the board. Please pause here, mark in green pen. And that marks the end of today's lesson, so thank you so much for listening, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next lesson. Thank you and goodbye.